What's going on, everybody? Good evening, and it is the final post-game Monday of the season for the Seahawks. And the day after these games, I like to take a look at what Pro Football Focus has to say, evaluate what Pro Football Focus tells us about who's doing their job, some of their metrics, some of their analytics, some of their grades. It's a good mishmash of different things to take a look at. Again, and I'm going to say this for one of the final times this season, this is not to imply that Pro Football Focus gets everything right or that they get everything wrong. They just do good work, and sometimes I think it's valuable. So, we're going to start with the offense in this video. Definitely the side of the ball that was actually pretty good on Sunday. Offense put up 30 points. They had to earn most of those points. They were efficient. They didn't turn the ball over. And they came up big when we needed it in the fourth quarter with a game-winning touchdown drive. So, let's take a look, first of all, just at the overall offensive grades. Pretty straightforward. You've got A.J. Barner leading the pack by far, which is notable because his pass blocking grade was atrocious, and his run blocking grade was mediocre, barely above mediocre, and yet they still thought he was our best player on offense by far because of how good he was on his routes. And when you consider the fact that he only ran 10 routes and caught, I believe, 5 passes, that's actually pretty remarkable. So, A.J. Barner had his best game of the year and the final game of the year, and I'm excited to see where this goes. I know that he's never going to be the best tight end in the league or anything like that, but I am pretty convinced he's going to be a quality starting tight end at some point in his NFL career. So, hopefully it's next year because we're going to need it. And the other tight end on this team also graded out very well because of what he did as a receiver, mostly. Noah Fant, 82.5. They thought his blocking was even kind of sort of passable, I guess, but that's not what he's here to do. So that's your second place finisher. Makes sense. If you watch that game, both those guys were really good. And your bronze medal, last guy on the podium, is your quarterback, Geno Smith. Played a really good game. Passing grade of almost 80, overall grade of 82. So that matches up with what I think most of us saw. I don't think anybody's going to look at that and say, that doesn't make any sense. That makes sense. So beyond that, we got a couple guys on the offensive line. Oluwatimi has one of his best graded games of the year, which is great to see because that is something that we really hope holds going into 2025, and he becomes at least a viable backup, maybe even a workable starter. And Laken Tomlinson, in what is hopefully his last game as a Seahawk, also graded out pretty darn well. I've been hard on Laken this year, and I stand by that. But I do think that he did minimal harm on Sunday. So don't disagree with that. Metcalf graded out fairly well as well. Still frustrated with his actual volume of production, but in terms of efficiency, he did have a pretty good year. Lockett, good to see him get a decent grade in his probably final game as a Seahawk. And those are your 7 guys that were particularly stand out in this area. Guys who were clearly above average in their grading. Then you get into a handful of guys that were just kind of average. Lomia, respectable, because he was a good run blocker, pass blocking, and not so much. But improvement, stepping in the right direction here. Zach Charbonnet, decent, workable. Pass blocking actually dinged him pretty hard, which is not common for him, but overall played okay. Bobo, which is actually, this is one of his best graded games of the year, 61.4, which is kind of sad, but at the same time, hey, he finally got in the end zone this year. If it was his last game as a Seahawk, which I suspect it will be, that's a pretty good way to go out. Can't hate. Derek Young only played 1 snap. Gerald, respectable, mostly as a pass protector, but respectable football. Great to see. Charles Cross, as I suspected, did have what was, according to PFF, probably his worst game of the season. Picked up a penalty, graded below 60, but still average. Still nothing bad. Still nothing alarming, in my mind. Barrow Brown played 6 snaps and was blah, whatever. And then the 2 guys that PFF actually thought were, like, at least approaching bad. Kenny McIntosh, which I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if they're giving him guff for his fumble that didn't count because of the offsides penalty. but I'm a little bit surprised by this one. I don't know what Kenny McIntosh did that was so bad. And JSN, lowest graded player on offense by a decent margin, too. And I mean, obviously, he didn't have a very good game. I don't know if it's necessarily anything he did wrong, but, I guess that's what happens when you have 4 catches for 9 yards. So it is what it is. His best grade was actually for run blocking of all things, which is funny. You will not see that very many times in his career. I'm telling you that right now. So that's it for the offense. It's pretty good, man. Pretty respectable. You've got, you look at these lowest graded players, you've got a 3rd string running back, you've got a 4th string right tackle. Those are the guys you would expect to be a little bit of an anchor. So I'm looking at this and I'm going, yeah, that was a good day by the offense. It's too bad Ryan Grubb wasn't able to put together a bunch more games like that in the last couple months. Maybe he'd still have a job if he was able to put that together. The passing chart for Geno Smith, there's really not a lot here that I find to be particularly fascinating. It was a pretty normal game, normal day at the office for him. He did get to push the ball down the field a little bit. He only connected on one of his deep attempts, but he did connect on it for a touchdown to Metcalf. Intermediate, was able to unlock that a little bit better. Was really good in the intermediate parts of the field. And continued to use the middle of the field expansively. And hopefully the next OC, whoever it is able to utilize the middle of the field the way Grubb did while also doing the other things that you need to do correctly. So you take a look at what he did in the short area of the field. He threw 12 passes, 11 completions. So really, really good in that area of the field. And that's where you do most of your work in this offense right now. You have to. So nothing too shocking here, but notable. Rushing direction, the thing that really stands out to me here, and I know it's a small sample size, but when the Seahawks ran outside the end, which is to say outside the tight end blocking, they were very productive running the ball. Left end, 4 carries for 32 yards. Right end, 3 carries for 21 yards. So if you combine the two, that's 7 carries, 53 yards. You're averaging over 7.5 yards a carry. So that's something that is exciting to me because I like outside zone. I like running the ball outside the tackles. I think it fits our skill set as a team. So again, we're going to be trying to figure things out again this offseason because we're getting a new OC, but I am personally hoping that that is something that we can repeat next year. Everything else in the middle, mixed bag, right? Like left guard was okay. That's between Cross and Tomlinson. Right guard, we only did it once, but it was productive. Right tackle, off right tackle, good. And then, middle stuff was just kind of whatever. Left tackle, whatever. So certainly not an amazing game, but a productive game running the ball. And you can see the areas where things were better and stronger. So I'm liking some of the trends here. Again, it doesn't matter that much anymore because who knows what's going to happen this offseason. By the way, if you're watching this video, can you guys let me know if you can hear my fan? I've repositioned my fan to account for the new position of my physical green screen. And if this is going to be a problem, if this is going to be something that people can hear, that fan, if you guys are capable of hearing that, I don't think you can. I want to hear it if you can, because I can move it, I can reconsider it, I can try to get a quieter fan. So let me know. Just putting that out there real quick. All right. So that's it for rushing direction stuff. Let's take a look at how the offensive line played according to PFF. Pass protection was respectable. Allowed 0 sacks, which means that in PFF's estimation, the sacks that Geno Smith took, he took, I believe, 2 of them, were not on the blocker. They were on maybe the coverage or the quarterback. So that's encouraging. Hurries, there were 10. So not amazing, but actually pretty good. You can live with that for the most part. I'm not angry about 10 total pressures allowed by your offensive line. And for as critical as the grading is on some of these players, I'm not convinced it really is that bad. Like A.J. Barner had 3 pass blocking reps and got a 27 grade even though he didn't allow any pressures. Now, I'm not denying that he's probably doing something wrong to earn that grade, but if no harm, no foul to a certain extent, right? But starting at the top here, Oluwatimi comes out looking really good here. Clean game for him. McIntosh only really had one opportunity to do it, but clean from him, well graded. Lake and Tomlinson, one pressure allowed the whole game on 30 dropbacks. That's actually, I mean, hey, if he played that way the whole season, we'd have nothing to complain about. Bant only had one opportunity to pass block, but clean. Gerald, two pressures. Charbonnet, one pressure. So that's why his grade got dinged a little bit. Charles Cross, 3, and Lomia, 3. So you can see why they did get dinged. They definitely had a lackluster performance, especially Cross versus expectations, but nothing super alarming here, right? This is just business as usual. This is a just a football team going through their business. 30 dropbacks, 10 pressures. That, if we had done that the whole season, we'd be a playoff team, and I think we'd have an elite offense right now. All right. So that is it for the pass blocking side of things. Now let's just do the run blocking. Again, the main thing I like to use here is just the zone versus gap. And interesting thing here is after finding a lot of success doing gap runs, heavily reduced this week. We were mostly a zone team this week run blocking, 17-7 approximately, with some snaps unaccounted for, but that's a pretty decent estimation, 17 versus 7. So it worked. So I'm certainly not upset about it. It's nothing wrong with it, but it is interesting to see how the team kept going back and forth between zone and gap this year and struggled to really commit to one thing over the other, which is not a bad thing, although it kind of is when your team isn't finding a consistent running game. So you do see the players that had good run blocking grades, Cross, Oluwatimi, Lomia, which is encouraging. And nobody really did all that bad except for Gerald. I'll say that. Credit where credit's due. All right. See you guys later. Go Hawks.